At Arizona State University, we're bringing world-class education from our globally acclaimed faculty to you. Ranked #1 in innovation for 10 consecutive years and #2 among public universities for employability, ASU isn't just ahead of the curve, it's creating new paths to success. Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online, that's a degree better. Explore more than 300 undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
Empire.
Hello and welcome to another live stream edition of the John Carm Report. Do me a favor, subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Empire Media, AMPIRE. Always much appreciated when you tune in. Don't forget, you can always read my work on ESPN.com. And as you can see, if you're watching the show right now, you can listen to Bram Weinstein, the voice of the Commanders, every Sunday, including Sunday, and also on his show, which is also goes to Empire Media and ESPN 630. Bram, we got a playoff push here now, man. Coming back from the bye. First of all, how was the bye week? Down to Charleston.
Yeah, I went to Charleston, South Carolina. I've never been there. I know you have family there. I had never actually been there before, and it's beautiful. It's like a large Georgetown with the beach 10 minutes away.
Yes.
Food was great. The housing, the houses there, truly unbelievable. And it was a great break. I needed it. I think I needed it a month ago, but I'm glad we got it. So I needed the break.
It is funny because we've talked about this before, but having such a late break is brutal. And 3 years in a row is just ridiculous. I have a feeling they'll make it up to this team next year, but we're going to get hammered by a lot of 4:00 games, primetime games, all that stuff next year.
Maybe a little trip to either Brazil or Germany too. I got a feeling our turn is coming for that one too. We haven't gone to Europe in 10 years. So we're one of the few that hadn't done it in a while. So I have a feeling that might pop up next year too.
Well, I would opt for Germany. I don't know about you, but I would opt for Germany. So
take it.
Hey, listen, but anyways, 4 games left, playoff push. And I was looking through all the scenarios today as they sit here now. And one of the things I want to ask you, first of all, how you assess this playoff race down the final push, because here's one little thing. I think there's a better chance they catch Green Bay than the Rams pass the Commanders.
I think, the option of that happening really probably comes down to this weekend with Seattle and Green Bay, which is, the more I think about that game, I can't figure out which one I want to have happen. Do I want Seattle to win and separate a little bit in the NFC West? Do I want Green Bay to win and bring Seattle back to earth and make the winner of the NFC West likely to have 10 wins? Like, the Rams and Seattle have to play each other. It's just so murky because the Vikings are a lost cause, and whether they win the division or Detroit wins the division, it doesn't matter at this point. Green Bay can't, but I believe they'll be a playoff team, and they're going to be in because 2-11 for them, and they're playing New Orleans next week at home. So, and they're going to end, I think, with Chicago, there's somebody in between there that's
Green Bay has Minnesota. They have to play at Seattle, at Minnesota, home to New Orleans, home to Chicago.
So let's just say they win the home games. That's 11 for them. So to me, they're a lost cause. And maybe Washington catches them at 11 if we go 3-1, which I think is very possible here. 3-1 down the stretch, very possible. But the murky part is, and this is the difficult part, I think we can both agree the division it's not off the table, but it might as well be. And because of that, there's only one path in. And because Minnesota has the record they have, it's just tricky. So there's a lot of scenarios. And, I thought all along 2-2 would be enough. But the more you go through it, it may not, with this one exception. Right now, they have the advantage in conference wins, which is the second tiebreaker. All the teams we're talking about, they didn't play. First tiebreakers head-to-head. So that's the good news. So if they go 2-2, it feels like it would work out. But 3-1's definitive to me, and that's the easiest path in to me.
So here we go. So if let's say they and the Rams both get to 10-7.
Yeah.
Well, then it comes down to conference record. Well, they both have a 7-5 conference record. Then it comes down to record against common opponents. Washington wins there. I think it's going to be hard. If they both go 10-7, the Rams aren't getting in ahead of them. So if Washington goes 3-1 and Green Bay goes 2-2, that would mean they're both 11-5. Washington would be, at that scenario, Washington would be 8-4 in the conference. Green Bay would be 6-6 in the conference. So these guys that's why I say I think they have a better chance to surpass Green Bay than the Rams do of surpassing Washington in that scenario. So the funny thing is, Bram, now this isn't going to happen, but the one team you'd have to worry about if they won out would be San Francisco. But their schedule is the Rams at Miami, home to Detroit, and at Arizona. If they went out, more power to them. You deserve it. But that's the one, because they would own the tiebreaker in terms of conference over Washington at that point if they both went 10-7. So
the bad scenario,
that's an unlikely scenario.
Yeah, I think the bad scenario is Seattle and the Rams win out until the final game when they meet each other. Like I think that's the bad outcome. But then the good news is one of them has to lose in week 18. But I think that's the bad outcome to me. Actually,
if the Rams win out, then yes, that would be a problem.
Yeah,
but again, if these guys go 3-1, they're okay because they would still have the conference tiebreaker over the Rams. Then you'd have to look at Seattle if they were able to catch Seattle, and I don't know. That's the one I haven't done. So that's the murky part of it. But if they tie with the Rams, they're in good shape and they can surpass Green Bay. So, but there's still so much more to go. And I know people on here are going to say hey, it all starts with New Orleans. And I would agree with that. And we can sit here and talk about the scenarios. And I can guarantee you, one thing Dan Quinn made clear on Monday in our press conference was he's not doing that. And he shouldn't. But we can. So, but yeah, Bram, I think they're in good shape. But if you go 3-1, you're in, period.
Yes, 3-1 does it. And I think 3-1 to feel and not scoreboard watch would do it. And I don't think that's unrealistic. Obviously, what's happening this weekend is they're getting a really marginalized team. And if I'll say the same thing about this game as I did about the Tennessee game. If you're serious about making the playoffs, you win this game. I know it's on the road, but you win. And then you get Atlanta at home, and you're going to get Dallas, who's all but and is maybe not officially eliminated, but will be within the next week or two. Geez, I mean, you win those 3 games. The Eagles game actually doesn't even matter. You win the Eagles game too, then you're streaking towards probably a higher seed than the 7 seed. So that would be really good too. I'd like to see them get away from that personally. Although I did see somebody in the chat say something like, "Who's scared of Philadelphia?" And I would just say, I don't think the Commanders are, with the one exception. They have a really poor run defense, and that's the one thing. Philadelphia is, extraordinary at running the ball with Saquon this year. So I don't like that matchup, and I don't like going up there. But I agree. I agree on the sentiment of, are the Commanders nervous about them? We can have this conversation next week. I don't think so, but I don't love it. I mean, that is the unstoppable thing that's happening in the NFL this year is their run game with Saquon Barkley. And, this would have to be Marshawn Lattimore is going to have to flip this team's run defense in a way that I don't expect him to be able to do on his own to actually change all of that.
Right. And by the way, Seattle has Green Bay, Minnesota, at Chicago, at the Rams left. So there's their finishing touch. That's not an easy schedule. That's why man, this year is what this team has done has been really, really good. And to go from 4 wins to 8 and possibly now 10, 11 wins, they should get to 10. They better get to 10 with the schedule. That's really, really impressive. But man, they need to take advantage of this year as well, because things are breaking right for them in terms of the schedule and who they're playing and when. And I think they've done a terrific job. You can only beat the teams on your schedule. And I know they've lost some good teams, but they've taken care of business against the bad teams except for 1 game. So if they do that, then you have 11 wins, or at least 10. So
before we move on, just real quick, here comes the inside thing of my podcast. Since it's on Empire, I feel we share the airwaves just for a moment. So people are actually tuning in now, which is good. If you want to know, like, do you want Hey Babies merch? I do have that. I at least have koozies of it. So if you want one, just, DM me or something. I'll send it to you. And if you want to know why I say that at the beginning of the podcast, I have to link you to the show where I actually talked about it for 10 minutes, and then you can understand. All right, as we were. So because I'm seeing all these things pop up about it, which I appreciate. And I just wanted to get it out of the way that I'll happily tell you, but we're here to talk about this team now. But I'm just getting it out of the way that I do have stuff like that to send to you all if you want it.
There you go. And I don't get a cut of that merchandise.
Yeah, these are free anyway.
Listen, I'll take, then I get half of it. But it's funny because in Silver Fox up here just pointed out something too, that the Rams lose on Thursday Night Football. They have a 2-game lead. Essentially, you almost have a 2-game lead right now, kind of.
Yeah.
Because the tiebreakers, they're going to have to finish ahead of Washington. They can't tie with Washington. The other thing is too, Bram, when you look at Sunday, and this should be Marshawn Lattimore's debut. I mean, that's what I think we're all expecting that. And when you're looking ahead at someone like the Saints, the one thing they're going to have to do this weekend is run the ball. Then you talk about the Eagles running the ball. You have Bijan Robinson run the ball, the Falcons and Kirk Cousins. So how much can Marshawn Lattimore help the run defense? And I say that
yes.
I was talking about this with someone yesterday. I don't think it's as simple as, now you have 7 in the box. Now you can stop them. Dallas played as many single high sets last year as anybody. They were not very good at stopping the run. So I know this is a different group, but it's not as simple as put another guy in the box and you stop him. It does give you a better chance. I think it gives you a better chance of getting off the field on third downs for sure. But I don't know that it's as simple as, now you do this because you have this. But I do expect more single high.
I do. And I think this is not the week I think where it's going to, I'm assuming he's going to play. We'll find out more later this week. And to answer the question of, is he playing? I don't know. Until we hear from Dan Quinn tomorrow into Friday, we don't know. And they've been very, very coy about exactly where he is at this point. So tomorrow when we go to practice, we'll see if he's out there. It'll be a very good indication if he's actually out there. I think it's trending that way. I hope that it's the case. And I do want to see him this week. That said, with Derek Carr out, I'm not sure this is the week we find out. That said, clearly we're hoping the Saints are very one-dimensional. Spencer Rattler was 0-3 when he started the 3 games he played earlier this year. He had a completion percentage under 60%. Olave's been hurt. Taysom Hill's not there. So obviously stopping Alvin Kamara is going to be kind of everything for the defense. So let's see how they handle this, but I don't know that it's going to be a total indication. Let's see against Philadelphia. This is where the test comes in of what the difference is going to be when he's actually out on the field. So I'll be very interested to see what that is. And the one person that I hope that they can maneuver a little bit more and get out of coverage a little bit more because his strength is closer to the line is Jeremy Chin. He's the one that I want to see in the box as often as possible to try to help and run support because he plays like a linebacker. And if he does have any real liabilities, it is back in coverage. So does Lattimore help maneuver Chin closer to the line more often? Then I think that would be an answer. But I just don't think we're going to see it this weekend because I don't think the Saints are that kind of test to find out what the difference really is based on the injuries that they have coming into this game.
Sure. And I think, again, I don't think it's as simple as you get an extra guy in the box, therefore you're going to be better against the run, because then it comes down to run fits. Can they do things to get to confuse the run fits, widen the gaps, whatever? So it's not as simple as that, but it certainly doesn't hurt for sure. And I think it gives you a better chance to get off the field on third down. And as Eugene said, they did a pretty good job. And I don't want to harp on the Eagles game because that's next week. But they did do but I think it's important going forward, not just for that game, but going forward. But I do, he's right. They did a pretty good job against the Eagles run game until late in the game. The defense did its part, and, the offense needed to score more. I think that's where the challenge will be in the second game as well. But the other thing is with the Eagles offense, when you ask a receiver like A.J. Brown, what's wrong with the pass game? And he says passing. Well, that doesn't bode well for what's going on inside that locker room.
No. Yeah. I mean, that's obviously there's a hope that their locker room's falling apart again, because that's what happened last year. But they haven't lost in 2.5 months. So until they lose to somebody, I know like people are putting this up like almost lost to Carolina. You know who else almost lost to Carolina the last 3 weeks? The Chiefs did. You know who else almost lost to Carolina the last 3 weeks? Tampa Bay did. In this league, it is not who you play, it is when you play them. If Washington played Cleveland now, as opposed to when they played them with Deshaun Watson, might be a different game. If they played Carolina right now, as opposed to when they played them, it might be a different game. If they played the Bears right now, as opposed to when they played them, they might have blown them out. It's really, it matters when you play a team. And I give Carolina credit. They've played a lot better, both sides of the ball. Bryce Young looks like a capable quarterback now. And so the Eagles, who haven't lost in 2.5 months, had a close game. Welcome to the NFL. I mean, you're not blowing everybody out every single week.
Right.
And their locker room may or may not be a mess. They just keep winning. And until that changes, I'm not buying into that they're careening off a cliff.
Well, their defense is really good. I really, really like their defense. And it's funny because I think E puts up a good reminder here for people. Like, just remember what he was saying to himself for the past couple of seasons. Just want to be contenders and relevant in December and late in the season, and they certainly are. Now, as someone else said, for them, is winning, is getting to the playoffs enough. You haven't been to the playoffs since 2020. Like, one step at a time here, because then it becomes about who's the matchup. So just because, then can you do something? And if it's in Philly, that's obviously a tough matchup. So I think, that's something to keep in mind. But here's like Mr. Kendall talking about, we don't play. We're not the ones you have to worry about. If the players are talking about something beyond the New Orleans game, that's a problem. We're not players. So we can talk about what is going to happen over the next 4 weeks, because what we say doesn't impact what the team does. So, yes, it's one game at a time, and yes, all that, but we're not, right, Bram? I mean, we're not a player. So we can look ahead to Philadelphia, because I don't need, I can write my stories. It doesn't, I don't need to write it one at a time. So, I don't worry about how we say. If you hear the players talking about that, and I'll say this, like, Quinn was really good, and he's been very good. This team has been very, very good at looking what do you need to do today, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. They've been really good at that. So you can take solace in that. But what we say is irrelevant to that.
Listen, like, you want a reminder, and I know this is all new for all of them, and this will fall into the category of one game at a time, and I agree with that. They're 8-5. That's their best start since 1999. 1999. Like, been a long time. 9-5 would be their best 14-game start since 1992, right? And then, like, the Saints, it's crazy. I couldn't believe this, but I guess it's true because Drew Brees was playing there for so long. They're trending towards a 10-loss season. That's only happened to them twice in the last 25 years. So I agree with the sentiment of, I think we keep our head down and pay attention to what's in front of us, because I'm not taking anything for granted. I will say this, though, coming off a bye, the way they looked against Tennessee and what happened to New Orleans last week, losing their quarterback, and the way that they've gone, I feel like they're going to go down there and win. And I know I shouldn't feel that way, and I shouldn't outwardly say it, but I do. And I think that's why we're trying hard not to get ahead of ourselves, but it's hard not to a little bit. You know what I mean?
I mean, again, we don't play. It doesn't matter what we say. So it matters what the players say. The players are not looking ahead. Let's be clear here. I have not put on pads in more than 35 years. So, like, we're okay talking about it here, because if the players are, again, so I'll give you an example. During the Jim Zorn year, and I wanted to talk about this too, because I don't know if you remember this, Bram. So they were 6-3 during Zorn's era. And if you remember, they were 6-2, started getting hurt, but they lost the next game. And I remember they had a bunch of injuries starting to pile up. And somebody asked Zorn about when he expected certain players to come back. And his comment was, well, we've got to rest them up and get ready for the playoffs. And as soon as he said that, I thought, you're done, because you don't, as a coach, you never say that. But honest to God, he said that. And being around that team, you could see players who were getting way ahead of themselves, way ahead. And, like, I remember Clinton Portis was taping some show for the in-house stuff, and he starts talking about championships. He was saying that that was not even at the bye. Like, they were way ahead. So that team, you knew was going to go off a cliff. This team is not doing that. We are doing that. So people, you take a deep breath. It's okay if we talk about it here. I'll promise not to tell Terry McLaurin what we talked about. But and just kidding aside, like the good thing for everybody worried about that is that they're focused on New Orleans only, and that stems from the head coach. Yeah. I think they do a really good job, Ram, of staying focused on what's important.
Yeah. Look, John, it's Tuesday. I'm filling out my boards for this week, and this week alone. These are the Saints, not the Eagles, John. These are the Saints.
Hey, all I was doing today was going over the Saints, the big pass plays allowed by the Saints, the going over their game against the Rams, going over this and that, the run defense, whatever, all that stuff. So that's what I've been doing too. But again, everybody, it's okay. But I will say, you guys can really hang your hat on the fact that this team has been really, really good all year at only looking ahead to what you're doing today. In the past, it's funny because I know, like Ron Rivera would love to say, you focus on what's important, not interesting. But I felt like they focused a lot on what's interesting and not important in the past. I feel like
he was telling on himself there, John. He was the one that was constantly talking about the interesting things.
Oh my Lord. It was, yes. Yeah. And but this group absolutely has their eye on what's important. But I will say that I agree with everybody. If they look past New Orleans to Philadelphia, then that's a problem. And I can tell you, like in the locker room, the questions aren't going to be about Philadelphia. It's going to be about Marshawn Lattimore coming back and coming off the bye week and how important this was, et cetera. So I do think, I do think they'll be fine on Sunday. Now, somebody else also asked earlier about the Dallas game because they were coming off a longer break at that time. And, now they have the bye, and did they come out the right way against Dallas? I think they're in a good spot. I don't know. And you know what? There's no way to know until we see on Sunday and until we're back around the players, Bram, to know how they're going to respond. But how do you agree? Like, this is a mature team.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think you learned it after they had the one loss I could take issue with is the Dallas loss. Like, that was supposed to be a get right game. Them losing to Pittsburgh wasn't a surprise. It was unfortunate because how close it was, but it wasn't a surprise based on relative health and, just in need of a bye. And then to turn around and play Philadelphia 4 days later, I'm not surprised. They lost up in Baltimore. I'm not surprised. They lost in Tampa in the opener for a rookie quarterback and a new team. I'm not surprised. But the Dallas one shook me a little bit. The fact that they turned around, still needed the bye, played the way they did, looked like the team from early in the season, I trust them. And I trust that they, as a group, will come out, they'll play hard. I'm hoping that we see similarly like what happened against Tennessee, or it's happened against Carolina or Cleveland. This is a team that is really marginalized. Step on their necks early. Someone said this to me the other day about something. They were like, the disappointing part about the Dallas game was where they were at the time. That was a team that was just preparing to quit. All you needed to do was get a 10-point, 14-point lead. And that game never would have been as close as it was. This is another one that I don't know. They've had so many injuries. They clearly are going to have a very hard time making the playoffs. If you get out early on them, what are they going to look like in the second half? And could this get away from them? And that's what I would like to see. Let me ask you something, because I think this is what I'm very interested in seeing is what adjustments are they making specifically on offense?
Yeah.
I know defensively, we've talked a lot about Lattimore, and obviously they need to improve their rush D. Hopefully having a Pro Bowl corner and hopefully he's healthy helps do that. Maybe there are some other adjustments. I don't know. But on offense, I'm really dying to see what a week and a half off looks like when they come out against New Orleans. What are the wrinkles? And this is where I think re-energize the passing game in some way. I'd like to see what comes out of this week and a half.
Oh, I think that, and here's the other thing, and this is what everybody always talks about, the ability to self-scout. And it's really about, coming out and do you break some tendencies? And I think we saw that last game with Terry McLaurin, where they had him more on the right side, a little bit more, not a ton more, but enough more, right? And so that was somewhat of a tendency breaker. Do you have other things like that? And I also think, Bram, it matters if Brian Robinson stays healthy. Like, he's a big deal to this run game. So as much as the wrinkles, it's the ability, like in the beginning of the year, you look at the December bye and say, that really sucks. When you're getting ready for the stretch run and you have a chance like to get some rest before a Final Four game push, that's a big deal too. But yeah, I'm with you, Bram. I think, just to see not just are there whatever wrinkles there are, or is there what tendency breakers are there? And are there other things you can get to as Jaden Daniels continues to progress with the playbook, with not just the playbook, but maybe the speed of seeing certain things, right? And I think, it's funny because one of the things, and this is not a wrinkle, but would be a development for Daniels is, and I was watching the Browns play the Saints today, and one thing that Jameis Winston did, he had 2 big touchdown throws because he broke out of the pocket and kept his eyes upfield. And Jaden does that, but then it's the ability to finish the play down the field, and he did that. And so those opportunities, I believe, will be there because the Saints leave gaps in their rush. So that's not a wrinkle, but it would be a growth for him to not just get out of the pocket, keep your eyes up, but then hit the big play down the field, because I think it will be there. So there's a lot of things I'm curious to see, and his development is always the fun thing to watch because, I mean, we're in the beginning stages of watching this kid play. It's funny because I think, was it Joe Buck on Monday Night Football a couple weeks ago said, well, Sean Payton is doing with the rookie. And someone said, what about Dan Quinn? Well, Payton's the only one doing it with the rookie. It's like, has everybody forgotten that Jaden Daniels is still a rookie? He's looked good all year. I think, he's
never looked the part. That's why people have forgotten. He's looked so good. I mean, in the NFC right now, who's playing the position better than him? Jared Goff. Who else? Sam Darnold, maybe.
Darnold's looked really good. You got to give him credit because he's done
a great year. Who's playing the position better than him in the NFC right now? Name them. They're not. Maybe Goff. That's it. So
Goff would
he's
be
having
the
that kind of year. The ones I want to see, though, I'm very interested to see this week, and moving forward here. Can we get Olamide Zaccheaus and Luke McCaffrey a little more involved than they've been? So is there ways to get these secondary targets a little more involved than they've been? I do want to know about Noah Brown. Remember, he got hurt in the last game. So I want to see how available is he. That's an interest. That one's gone under the radar. And the other one is this. Right. And I love Jeremy McNichols, and I am all for competition, fighting for your spots, winning your job, consistently competing. Jeremy McNichols earned the spot on the roster. He's been great on special teams. He's been a captain. He had a couple of really good showings running the ball early in the season. It's clear to me, with Eckler out for at least the next few games, and we'll see for the rest of the season, I'd like to see more Chris Rodriguez as the backup primary second runner to Brian Robinson. I think it's kind of going that way anyway, but I have a feeling it's going to continue to do so here down the stretch of the season.
I've been happy to see what he's done because, Bram, that's what I kind of was hoping to see, and we didn't see it this summer. We didn't see him look like that in training camp, and I was surprised by that because I liked what I saw last year. And I remember talking to people last year. They said the one thing for him was, will he maintain his focus on the field? And it didn't give me necessarily examples of that, but I always felt he ran hard. I mean, some of those runs he had against the Titans, they were really, really good because it wasn't just, there's a big hole. It was there's a good hole. You press the hole, you get the linebackers in, you're cutting up. It's like the vision was there. Everything was solid for him. So I agree with you. You can have a nice 1-2 punch and it limits the wear and tear on Robinson. It's so important to have that second guy, but I agree. He's, I think you're right in the way he's trending with them. So yeah, for sure. But you're right. Noah Brown is another big one. Here's the other one, Jamison Crowder. They're opening the window for him to come back. And that would be as a punt, that would be one as a punt returner. And two, one of the things that he does well, he's not going to be a big time target for them, but what he does do well is he gets open quick. And that's always been a strength of his. And I think that's something they can use underneath more than what they have from others. But yeah, I think we all keep waiting for the Luke McCaffrey 6 catch for 90-yard game. I
Yes.
don't know. At some point you got to figure it's going to come, but maybe this weekend. And again, they give you escape hatches on that pass rush. Jane's going to be a pest for them in that area. And is he going to run it? Is he going to throw it, or both? But I think he can have a big game doing that. So maybe this week, Bram.
I think the unlock Terry thing that clearly got cleared up over the last week, that went on for a few weeks, really stemmed to me from they had just kind of lost their secondary targets and they just weren't part of what was going on a week-to-week basis. So the other teams weren't taking them really seriously. And there is one other thing I want to bring up, which is this is on the margin stuff, and I want to bring this up really quickly. Like the change. I'm out on Ozzy as a punt returner. I can't wait for Crowder to come back. Olamide Zaccheaus is like top 5 punt return yardage. So I know he had a couple fumbles in a game and he got them back and whatever, lost one of them. But like, I don't actually, he's doing a very good job. So I just want to defend him here. Like, he's doing a very good job. Mine on the margins actually is kick return. That was way down last week without Eckler. He'd actually been exceptional at it. And that's something that they're missing here. And I don't know that Crowder adds to that. But like their field position was totally different with Eckler, and obviously he's not coming back, not anytime soon. And so that is a missing piece. And I'm interested to talk to Quinn about how they're thinking about kick returns, because that was an advantage for them. They were top 5. Eckler was top 3 kick returns. He was outstanding, nearly broke a couple of them, and that was not the case. It was like the one thing that was off and under the radar against Tennessee. That was not the case without him. So I want to see how they're thinking about kick returns to try to win back some of that field position game that they were winning early in the season with Eckler.
No, that's a good point, because he was always close to breaking it for sure. So yeah, I think that's a good one. I do think, it is funny because Noah Brown is a key here. And it is, I talked to one defensive coach earlier this year about him. And he said that, not that he's a better receiver than Terry McLaurin, but just that they were worried about him because what he could do he said he could play any of the 4 receiver spots and do different things as a receiver more than anybody else here. That doesn't mean he's better. It's just that he could make contested catches. He's a good blocker. He's, so the route running. So like there were things that he could do that concerned them. Again, not that he's better than McLaurin. He's not. But that he could make big plays too. So, you lose that with him and I will say this, the other thing too, with that, Bram, it's been good to see Diami, what he's done. Not that he's had some Pro Bowl year or anything like that, but he's had a better year. But I think what they've done well with this group is what can they do? Let's use them in that role.
All right, I got one thing for you before we go, because I saw this earlier, and I think it's a good question. I want to see what you think of it too. What do you think of Bill Belichick becoming the UNC Tar Heels football coach? I was shocked. Like, I thought for sure that he wasn't serious about that when I saw the reporting about it. I couldn't believe that he agreed to that job.
Oh, well, there's 2 things. What I wonder, Bram, and I have no reporting on this, so this is just a wonder, and you hear other people maybe wonder about the same thing, is we all know that there are jobs that may come open right now, right? In the next few weeks. We know that people are in touch with those teams. Like if you think Team X might get rid of their coach, your agent is probably talking to Team X, trying to pick their brain about what's going on and maybe what it might mean for their client. So I wonder if this doesn't mean that for Belichick, that he might know that there isn't a spot for him in the NFL as a head coach next year. So maybe this is your way in, and to get his son to maybe take over down the road. But I just, there's a couple of things, Bram, like, could you imagine him on recruiting you? And like, what would that sound like for him? I think Brady had a good impression of it. Like, you don't want to come here. Okay, we're going to move on, onto the 4-star or whatever. But that would be, it was bizarre. It was shocking to hear that. Shocking.
The one I saw him do an interview on McAfee, because he goes on weekly, and they asked him, because this was before it was announced, and he qualified it with, if I wanted to go to a college, program, this is what I'd want. And he described a kind of like almost like a football academy that was like preparing players, and who better to prepare players for the NFL than Bill Belichick and his staff. And I agree with that. And I'm sitting there going, that's not North Carolina. That's no school, actually. Like, you have to pay the players to show up to play. You're not going to get all of them. They're not all going to go just because you're the coach there. Like, if that's what you want to do, go run IMG Academy, because that's what they do. Like, there is no college football program like that. There's a lot of good pros that come from a lot of good places. But North Carolina, unless they've got $50 million in NIL, he's not getting all the NFL-ready players to play for him. So, like, when he said that, I was like, that's a pipe dream. Like, I know you are who you are. And if I wasn't getting $3 million to go play for Texas, I would definitely listen to you and go want to play for you to become an NFL player. But that's just not, in my opinion, a realistic viewpoint of what the North Carolina or any college football program can be.
No, for sure. And I think, it sounds in theory nice that, oh, you got, one of the greatest coaches of all time. And I'm not going to say the greatest, because I think there was a guy who coached here who was pretty damn good. And there's a guy that for a team I grew up watching, the Browns, Paul Brown, was pretty damn good. However, Gibbs was fantastic. But point is, one of the greatest ever. That's not good. It's just like when Michael Jordan bought, the Hornets, like, oh, they're going to all want to play for him because it's Michael Jordan. It's like, you're not going to go there necessarily because of Bill Belichick. You're going to go there because of NIL money. And then, yes, pro opportunities, but what school puts you in the best position to do that? And, so I'm not sure that it's going to be North Carolina. It's funny, Bram, because it's almost like with his love of like the military academies, like it would, and there's no opening, but that's where I could have seen him going. Like that would be hey, here's a way to finish off a career kind of thing. But
one of the military academies is ranked, and the one that he loves from Annapolis was 8-3 this year. So
right. So they're
like
not. There's no
Army Navy game ever.
But that's where
happening this weekend.
No, but that's where, like, if he had going to college, like if somebody said that, like, oh, I could see that. But North Carolina seems like, But again, it could, if it's about, because the one thing was his son would join him and his son would take over in a few years. If that's the case, like, well, I can kind of see that.
Or 1 year. I mean, I think largely to me, the thing that really got me about it was, it's to your point about, like, there's no way he's not already talking to the people who have openings or perceived to have open. Like, New Orleans is going to have one. The Bears have one. So those are two of.
Well,
and there's plenty you could point at and go, I think those will be open. The amazing part is that the word's already gotten back to him that there's not a lot of interest in him, which is, here is one of, if not, I don't care what you think of him, he is one of the greatest NFL coaches of all time.
Sure.
If he coaches somewhere for the next 3 years, he's going to break the all-time wins record. Like, and you could sit there and tell me that's Brady till you're blue in the face. It's not just one player that it ends up like that. And I can't believe that there's almost no interest in him. Like, it's like shocking to me. There's like no interest in him.
Well, it is. And the hard part for him is that, like Atlanta, the word was he was going to bring a bunch of his people in. So if you're in Atlanta and you're sitting there trying to make a decision, like, well, if I say, yeah, this guy, he's going to bring in all these guys and like, we're out of a job. Like, well, of course you're not going to say, well, this is, so I think the fear of that and him coming in over and taking over an organization is different than him going to coach a team. Right. So I think that's the thing that you'd have that I think probably scares teams. And then it's like, he's an older guy. Like, it's hard.
You know what? You know who you ought to let take it over? The Bengals, who have Joe Burrow. Let him go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. Take it over. We have a superstar quarterback. Take it over. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's for sure. And then I'm also curious to see what happens in Dallas, but that's for another time. But yeah, I'm surprised that it just feels like it's not quite real. And is there another motive behind it? But I do believe that at this point, agents start to know who's probably going to be coming open, what teams are going to be coming open before that, the media knows for sure too. So I think they would have done their due diligence at this point to know. And
the good news for you, John, is you don't have to follow Ben Johnson and whether he wants a job or not this time. Isn't that amazing for you?
Yeah, no kid. It is unbelievable. Listen, man, Bram, like if all works out, this is the group that we're going to be covering for a while. And
I think so. Yeah.
And I see no reason why I wouldn't believe that, like from GM to coach to quarterback, like each one of them has had a really good year. I mean, so, there's no reason to think it wouldn't be like that. But I mean, you never know what happens in this league, but there's a lot there. You can look at this franchise and say it's in a dramatically better place. And just, I know people don't want to think back 2 years ago where they were, but my God, how the distance they've traveled in a short time. It's unbelievable. So here's the other thing with Ben Johnson. We don't need to get into this. Yeah,
No
Ben
way.
Johnson. Listen, here's what
No
we
way.
don't know about. Here's what I know about Ben Johnson. He's a really good play caller, really good offensive mind. That's it. I don't know, can he create a culture? That's Dan Campbell in Detroit. He created that. And so, can you create that somewhere? When Quinn came here, that was the number one thing I'd hear from people is that one coach told me he's the most intentional. He does the best job of setting the intention for the building of anybody he'd been around, right? And so, you knew he could do all that. It was, just what other factors were there? Ben Johnson might be a really good head coach, but we have no clue how he'd do in front of a group and organize a team, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So who knows? That one's over, Bram. But you're right. The good thing for all of us covering this, we're not going to have to worry about that this year and maybe not for a long time. And what a nice thing for everybody listening that is, because the worst thing for a media guy, last year was brutal because it was GM search, coach search, quarterback search. And it was triple whammy, boom, boom, boom. But man, you got it all the way and hit a home run. It appears to have hit a home run on each selection. So, that bodes well for the future.
You've done some boxing training. That was a nice 1-2 counter you had there. That was pretty good.
Well, usually on this beat, you're in the corner like this after a while, getting just pummeled by bad news after bad news. Oh, there you go. Hey, listen, when I was a kid, we had boxing gloves when I was a kid, and my brothers and I would go out boxing in the yard and just, without, it was just, there's a lot of things we did that probably wasn't very smart, but we had fun. So anyway, Bram, I think we've rambled enough and we've solved enough problems. So appreciate you tuning in. And then for everybody else, I will be back either Wednesday night or Thursday morning. It depends on what we hear about Marshawn Lattimore on Wednesday, because I'll have some reaction to that and give some more thoughts on that, what his return means, depending on what we find out from Dan Quinn and watching on practice on Wednesday. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. Bram, thanks as always for joining me, and I'll talk to you next time.